Comfortable. That's the word, isn't it? Not rich. Not retired at 40. Not private jets and vacation homes. Just comfortable. The baseline. The version of life where you pay your bills without panic, you put something away for the future, you handle an unexpected expense without it ruining your month, and you occasionally do something enjoyable without calculating whether you can afford it first. That's it. That is the ask. Comfortable. So here's the question, what does comfortable actually cost in 2026? Not in theory. Not in some national average that includes rural Mississippi and downtown Manhattan in the same blended number. Not the figure that some think ain't calculated based on 2019 data and hasn't updated since. What does a genuinely comfortable life actually cost in a real American city right now this year, with current rents, current grocery prices, current insurance rates, current interest rates? Because I looked at the number. I did the math. I built it line by line from real costs in real cities. And the number is going to make you feel something. Depending on where you are in your life, that something might be relief that you're close, or it might be the very specific frustration of realizing that the life you were told was attainable at your current income is further away than anyone told you. Either way, you need to know the real number. And today we're going to find it. I'm your host and welcome to Finance in Hand. This is the video I wish existed when I was 25, staring at an offer letter and having absolutely no framework for what it actually meant. Subscribe. Let's get into it. First, we have to define comfortable. The problem with every conversation about salary and cost of living is that nobody defines their terms. Comfortable gets used to mean 5 completely different things depending on who's saying it. To a 22-year-old fresh out of college, comfortable might mean covering rent and still having money for weekends. To a financial advisor, comfortable might mean fully funding a 401k and having 6 months of emergency savings. To a parent of 2 in a mid-sized city, comfortable might mean not lying awake at night calculating whether a car repair is going to blow up the month. These are not the same number. And the gap between them is why so many people feel like they're doing okay on paper and not okay in reality because their salary hits one definition of comfortable while their life requires a different one. So I'm going to define comfortable specifically, precisely, with 5 criteria, all of which have to be true simultaneously because meeting 4 out of 5 still means something is broken. Criterion 1: housing costs at or below 30% of gross income. This is the standard benchmark. Not 40%, not well it's 38%, but I make it work. 30%. At or below. Criterion to A: fully funded emergency fund 3 to 6 months of total expenses already in place and not actively being depleted. Not working toward it. Already there. Criterion 3: retirement contributions of at least 15% of gross income. This includes employer match. If your employer matches for percent and you contribute 11%, you're at 15. If your employer matches nothing, 15% comes entirely from you. Criterion for no high-interest consumer debt. No revolving credit card balances. No personal loan debt at above 8% interest. Student loans and a mortgage can exist, those are structural debts with manageable rates. Consumer debt at 20+% is a different category entirely, and its existence means you are not comfortable. You are in a slow financial bleed. Criterion 5: discretionary margin. Money left over every month after all of the above for food that isn't just functional, for a vacation that doesn't require financing, for a broken thing that gets replaced without a budget crisis. Not unlimited money. Margin. Something left. If all 5 of those are true simultaneously, you are comfortable by any honest definition of the word. If any one of them is false, if you're hitting for but the emergency fund is empty, or you're hitting for but carrying a credit card balance, or you're contributing to retirement but housing is eating 40% of your income, you are not comfortable. You are managing, which is different. Now let's build the salary that makes all 5 true at the same time. Here's where I have to be honest with you about something. There is no single national answer to this question because the cost of housing, which drives this math more than any other variable, varies enormously by location. So I'm going to build 3 versions of this budget, 3 centi tiers. Real costs 2026 numbers for a single adult with no children. We'll get to families shortly because that number is its own conversation. Tier 1 high cost city. Think Seattle, Denver, Boston, Washington, D.C., San Diego, Austin, Miami. These are not the most expensive cities in the country. New York and San Francisco live in a different universe, but they are the cities where most people who feel squeezed actually live. In a Tier 1 city, a one-bedroom apartment in a reasonably safe, reasonably located neighborhood in 2026 runs between $1,900 and $2,400 a month. Let's use $2,100 as a real midpoint. For housing to sit at 30% of gross income, your gross monthly income needs to be at least $7,000. That is $84,000 per year just to hit the housing benchmark. Now, build the rest of the budget. Transportation if you need a car, and in most of these cities outside of Boston and DC, you do a modest car payment plus insurance plus fuel runs $700 to $900 a month. Let's use $750. Groceries $400 a month. This is careful, not ascetic. Utilities and internet $250. Phone $85. Health insurance out of pocket costs beyond premiums, copays, prescriptions, dental $150 a month averaged. Subscriptions and personal care $120. Student loan payment, if applicable, and statistically it probably is $350. That is $2,105 in non-housing monthly costs, plus $2,100 in rent. Total fixed and semi-fixed monthly outflow for $1,205. Now we add savings requirements. Emergency fund contribution, if you don't have it fully funded yet, you need to be adding to it. Let's say $300 a month until it's built. Retirement at 15% of gross at $84,000 gross, that is $12,600 per year, $1,050 a month. Your employer matches some of this, let's say 4%. You still need to contribute 11% yourself, $770 a month from your paycheck. Discretionary margin, the thing that makes life actually livable, $500 a month. One dinner out per week, a streaming service or two, an occasional purchase that isn't a crisis. Total monthly requirement for $1,205 plus $300 plus $770 plus $500 equals $5,775. After tax, after benefits, real spendable money. At a take-home of approximately 72% of gross, accounting for federal and state taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and health insurance premiums, you need a gross salary of roughly $96,000 to $100,000 to generate $5,775 a month in true take-home. In a Tier 1 city, comfortable costs approximately $100,000 a year for one person. Let me say that again. One person. No children. No spouse. No mortgage. Renting a one-bedroom and doing everything the financial advice industry tells you to do. $100,000 a year. Tier 2 mid-cost city. Charlotte, Columbus, Indianapolis, Kansas City, Phoenix, Salt Lake City, Pittsburgh, Richmond. Places that are genuinely more affordable than the coastal metros, but places where costs have risen significantly over the last 5 years due to migration and demand. One-bedroom apartment $1,400 to $1,700. Let's use $1,550. For housing at 30% of gross, you need gross monthly income of at least $5,167. That's $62,000 per year just for the housing benchmark. Transportation $650 a month. The cars are non-optional in most of these cities. Groceries $370. Utilities and internet $220. Phone $85. Health costs out of pocket $130. Subscriptions and personal $110. Student loans $350. Non-housing monthly costs $1,915. Plus rent of $1,550. Total $3,465. Retirement contribution at 15% of $62,000 gross $9,300 per year, $775 a month. With a 4% employer match, you contribute $680 yourself. Emergency fund contribution $250. Discretionary $450. Total monthly requirement $3,465 plus $682 plus $250 plus $450 equals $4,847. At 70% take-home efficiency, that requires gross income of approximately $80,000 to $85,000 per year. In a tier city, comfortable costs roughly $80,000 to $85,000 for one person. Tier 3 lower cost markets. Smaller metros, Mid-South, Mid-Midwest, parts of Appalachia, Huntsville, Tulsa, Memphis, Omaha, Des Moines, Knoxville. One bedroom $1,000 to $1,300. Use $1,150. At 30% of gross, you need $3,833 monthly gross, $46,000 per year for housing alone. Transportation $600. Insurance is sometimes higher in these markets. Groceries $340. Utilities and internet $200. Gas and electric can run higher in extreme climate areas. Phone $85. Health $120. Personal and subscriptions $100. Student loans $350. Non-housing monthly costs $1,795. Plus rent $2,945 total. Retirement at 15% of $46,000, $6,900 per year, $575 a month. You contribute $460 with a 4% employer match. Emergency fund $200. Discretionary $400. Total monthly requirement $2,945 plus $460 plus $200 plus $400 equals $4,005. Gross requirement approximately $67,000 to $70,000 per year. Even in the most affordable markets in America, comfortable costs approximately $67,000 to $70,000 for a single adult in 2026. The floor of comfortable in 2026 in the least expensive functional American job markets is $67,000 a year. The median individual income in the United States is approximately $56,000. A majority of individual earners in America are below the floor of comfortable, not below wealthy. Below the baseline of what comfortable actually requires. Now at a family. I said we'd get to families. Here it is. Take the tier to budget $80,000 for one person in a mid-cost city. Now at a partner who isn't working or is working part-time and one child. The one bedroom becomes a two bedroom, add $300 to $500 per month in rent. Childcare. In 2026, the average cost of full-time childcare for one child in a mid-size American city runs between $1,200 and $2,000 per month. Let's use $1,400. Increase groceries for a family of 3, add $250. Pediatric healthcare costs, add $150. Baby or child-related expenses, clothing, activities, school supplies, the endless parade of small costs that parents know, add $200. That is approximately $2,300 in additional monthly costs for one child in a larger home, on top of the $4,847 baseline. New monthly requirement $7,147. Gross income required approximately $130,000 to $140,000 for a family of 3 in a tier city to be genuinely comfortable by all 5 criteria. The median household income in the United States in 2026 is approximately $80,000. A family of 3 on $80,000 in a mid-cost city is not comfortable. They are managing. They are one emergency away from the credit card. They are choosing between adequately funding retirement and adequately funding childcare and can't quite do both. They are not failing. They are in a mathematically difficult position that no amount of budget optimization fully resolves. This is not a political statement. It is arithmetic. Why we never feel caught up. Here's the part that makes all of this harder than it already is. Even the people who hit the number who earn $100,000 in a tier 1 city and technically have enough oft and don't feel comfortable. The financial anxiety doesn't disappear when the salary clears the threshold, and there's a reason for that. Human beings don't evaluate their financial situation in absolute terms. We evaluate it relative to our reference group, the people around us whose financial lives we can observe. And in 2026, the reference group that most people are implicitly comparing themselves to is not their actual peer group. It's a curated, filtered, algorithmically optimized version of financial success served to them through social media 6 hours a day. You're comparing your real, unfiltered financial life to the highlight reel of people who may be earning more, who may be carrying significant debt behind the scenes, or who are simply presenting a version of their life that doesn't include the stress. There's also the salary number that felt like it would be enough was calibrated to a cost of living that no longer exists. You grew up hearing that $75,000 was a good income. Your parents bought a house on $55,000. The cultural benchmark for financial comfort was set at a price point that predates 5 years of inflation, 2 years of aggressive rent increases, the highest car prices in American history, and interest rates that doubled the cost of any finance purchase. You're holding yourself to an old number in a new economy. And the gap between the old benchmark and the real current number is making you feel like you're falling short when you might actually be exactly where you should be in a market that genuinely requires more than it used to. What to do if you're not at the number? Let me be direct here. If the number I've shown you is above where you currently are, which statistically it probably is for most people watching this, the answer is not despair. The answer is a clear-eyed plan with an honest timeline. There are exactly 2 variables that move the number in your favor: income growth and cost of living reduction. Budget optimization, the tracking and cutting that most personal finance content focuses on, is real but limited. It closes small gaps. It does not close a $20,000 annual gap between where you are and where comfortable lives. On income, the fastest path to the comfortable salary is almost never a raise in your current role. Raises in existing roles average 3 to 5% annually. The salary premium for switching jobs, moving to a new company for a lateral or slightly elevated role, has historically been 10 to 20% in a single move. If you're below the comfortable threshold for your city and your current role has a natural salary ceiling close to your current pay, the most impactful move you can make is a targeted job change within the next 12 to 24 months with a specific income target. Not a job change for the sake of change. A deliberate, targeted move to a role where the compensation puts you above the line. On cost of living, housing is the only variable that moves the needle enough to matter at this scale. If you are in a tier 1 city, earning $80,000 and comfortable requires $100,000, you have to paths. Earn $100,000, which we just addressed, or reduce your housing costs by $500 to $700 a month through a roommate, a different neighborhood, or a move to a tier 2 city where the same income buys a fundamentally different financial life. Both levers are real. Both require actual decisions. Neither happens by optimizing your grocery budget. Here is what I want you to walk away with. If you feel financially stressed on what everyone around you has told you is a good salary, you are not bad at money. You are living in an economy where the cost of the things that constitute a stable life, housing, healthcare, transportation, childcare, has grown faster than median incomes for most of the last decade. Your instinct that something doesn't add up is correct. The math supports you. The comfortable salary in 2026 is not $50,000. It is not $60,000. In most real American cities, for a single adult doing everything right, it is between $80,000 and $100,000. For a family, it is between $120,000 and $150,000. Those are not luxury numbers. Those are the arithmetic results of adding up what a responsible, stable, forward-looking life actually costs right now in the cities where most jobs are located. Knowing the real number doesn't solve the problem, but it does something almost as important: it correctly locates the problem. The problem is not your discipline. The problem is not your spending habits. The problem is a gap between what your current income provides and what a genuinely comfortable life requires, and that gap has a specific dollar value that can be targeted, planned for, and closed. You cannot fix a gap you can't see. Now you can see it. Your permission slip. You have permission to stop feeling personally responsible for an affordability crisis that you did not create and cannot solve by cutting expenses. You can and should optimize where you can. But do not carry the weight of a structural problem as if it's a personal character flaw. It is not. You also have permission to use the number I've given you as a target, not a judgment. If you're at $65,000 and comfortable in your city requires $85,000, that's a $20,000 gap with a path. A specific path. A job change, a negotiation, a skill, a market. Not a vague sense that you need to earn more. A number and a direction. And you have permission to define comfortable on your own terms, which means being honest about whether your current situation actually meets all 5 criteria, or whether you've been calling managing comfortable because it's easier than admitting the gap. The gap is the beginning, not the end. This is Finance in Hand. I'll see you next week.